Welcome to West Coast to East Coast, your podcast on the latest news in Canadian immigration and the latest tips on the IELTS, CELPIP, and PTE language proficiency tests. My name is Maria, and I'm a certified Canadian English teacher and language exam expert here to help you get the band scores you need.
And my name is Olena, and I'm regulated Canadian immigration consultant. And today we're talking about the change in a mindset of an immigrant. It's a very juicy topic, yes.
It is, it sure is. Today's going to be perhaps a little bit of a controversial episode.
Yes, definitely. Well, I know, Maria, we talked a lot about it because we actually originally connected with you during the pandemic. So I think it was 2020 or 2021.
Yeah, it's been quite a few years that you and I have been working together, become friends as well.
Yes, and back in 2020, especially in 2021, immigration was just absolutely insane because Canadian government was doing this kind of a open door policy when they were really giving a lot of opportunities and just providing a lot of good chances for immigrants in Canada and outside of Canada to apply for permanent residency. So what we've seen in 2021, it was a crazy express entry draw where the minimum cutoff point was 75 points.
Yes.
So right now it's 500 plus.
And I remember that day. I remember when the government, unexpectedly made that draw, that 75-point draw. I remember you and I, we called each other. We were just in shock. Like, what is going on?
I remember that day because it was Saturday, and the express entry draw never happens on Saturday. So when I saw it, I was like, "This can't be true. It's just can't."
We thought it was like a scam or something. We couldn't believe it, especially because prior to that, everything was always hovering around 300 and something, or even 400. And then all of a sudden, boom, 75, and we were just in complete shock. We had no idea that was going to happen.
Yes, they invited a lot. I don't remember right now the number, but I think it was 28,000 immigrants that they invited in just one shot. I think it was 28,000. Yes. So it was crazy. So that was actually in February. Maybe it was Valentine's Day it was around Valentine's Day. It was February 15th, I believe, 2021. And just 2 months after, they did a crazy program that everybody heard of. It's TR to PR program. Yeah. So in April, they announced TR to PR program, which basically meant that pretty much almost every international student in Canada could apply for permanent residency, which is very, very simple eligibility requirements. So I don't remember the specific quota right now, but it was huge quota. I think it was about 40,000 people. And on May 6, 2021, the quota was filled in less than 24 hours.
Wow.
So, it was pretty crazy. So then, when the program closed in less than 24 hours, what happens is that all these people who didn't get a chance to apply just because they were either not fast enough or they didn't, just have their papers together, or just simply they didn't know about it. There were people that just didn't know about it because it all happened so fast, right?
Yeah.
So all these people, they were expecting, okay, when the next 75 draw for express entry coming? When the next TR to PR is coming? Right?
Yeah, people were just kind of expecting this kind of golden nugget, this amazing opportunity that happened as a one-off to happen again. And it basically was just that. It was a one-off. And for those of you who maybe don't know what that means, it's basically a one-time opportunity.
Yes, for sure. And you know what? Well, I don't blame really people, because the government, I think, should have been more clear about the fact that it is a one-off, right? It is a one-time thing, which they became clear on that, but only in the next year. So 2022, I think that's when they clearly said that there's no more TR to PR happening, and they made it clear to everyone. But I think it really impacted the general mindset of immigrants in Canada or even outside of Canada. So as an English exam expert, working with that clientele all the time, with immigrants all the time, like what did you see
Oh my
happen?
goodness. That I remember, because I know for you, you were working, as a consultant at the time. I'm sure for you that was crazy. For me, as an examiner, it was nuts because we had a massive influx of people that realized, oh my goodness, this amazing opportunity appeared, and I had not taken my IELTS or CELPIP test. So many people missed the boat. Great idiom for you to learn. If you don't know what that means, it means they missed the opportunity. So a lot of people who did not have their profile ready and waiting to get called for that 75-point draw, they realized, oh my goodness, I could have been called. I need to get my profile together. I should have had my IELTS and CELPIP certificate in the pool, because even with like low points or like a lower band score, even they could have already gotten their PR. So
Exactly.
suddenly,
And sorry to cut you off, but that is still, honestly, that is still true, because ultimately, regardless of the score, if you are an immigrant, you in Canada, outside of Canada, you should have your IELTS CELPIP score ready, and you should have your profile in express entry pool or provincial pools. Like you should be in there, just not to miss any opportunities.
exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
And we had more people that needed to take their tests than examiners could handle. I mean, I remember we were working overtime and just marking hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of IELTS writing exams and testing hundreds of speaking tests. And it was just the volume was overwhelming, and people could not book their tests. Like the CELPIP website crashed, and hackers started creating fake CELPIP websites, and people were creating fake CELPIP certificates. They still do that till this day. By the way, our school does not sell fake CELPIP certificates. Unfortunately, there are so many scammers out there, and it just got crazy. For months and months, you couldn't book a test. Like it was just nuts. And so that created a backlog of people trying to book their tests and a sense of desperation to book their IELTS or CELPIP tests, big time.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, and backlog was real is also because that hope that TR to PR will reopen, the 75 draw will happen again. That hope was still there. And I think it was still there up until, honestly, like 2023, when people in the middle of 2023, people really started realizing that, okay, like it's there, the hope is lost. Like the immigration is getting only harder right now. Like express entry points are absolutely crazy right now. That they're very high, 500 plus or 520 plus, and then there will be these as you said, like golden nugget programs. So I think what happened, especially in our job, is that we really sense like that shift of mindset of an immigrant, because so many people got their permanent residency in a fairly easy way. And other people were expecting that it would be the same, right? So imagine like, if I didn't apply for TR to PR, I didn't get 75-point draw invitation, but let's just say like 5 of my friends did.
Right.
And they just like got a PR like that, right? Like was like no effort. Then I would be like, okay, but why am I worse, right? Like I should be getting that too. So that mindset, it started appearing more and more among immigrants. And like, to be honest with you, that is justified, like in a sense of like the government created this, like this kind of sense of entitlement a little bit around permanent residency, right? Because the government was not clear about like that it's a one-off opportunity. Yeah, like, and it's just, we felt more and more like that. And people were like straight up, like just saying that, like, listen, like 10 of my friends received a PR, like why I can't? And then I would be, well, because those times are over. That's why.
Yeah. And they also announced really lofty and big immigration goals. Remember in the news during pandemic, they were saying, the government was being very aggressive with the immigration goals publicly, especially during the political campaigns, being like, we're planning on attracting this many immigrants, hundreds of thousands. And it was part of the plan for the economic plan to bring a certain number of people to the country for economic growth. And so it was a very public program, on the news and stuff. So people were
PR,
very,
right? It was all a part of their PR that we need immigrants. We need them to fill labor shortages.
We need immigrants. Exactly. Like even I remember many years ago when I've been back in Canada for 5 years. I was born and raised here in Vancouver, but I lived in Brazil from late 2010, early 2011. And then I moved to Brazil to work as an English teacher. There was like a wave of Brazilians that came to Canada. I would say from like 2013, 2014 to like 2018, there was like a good 4 years where all you could see in the news was the government saying, we need Brazilians, we need people coming to Canada. And all these agencies were like really pushing it and saying, come to Canada, come to Canada. And it was like a popular thing. There was like this trend, like, come to Canada, we need you. Like it was like so popular for people to come. Like it was as if like we didn't have people here in Canada or something. It was like a desperation. And people would talk to me when I was in Brazil. And people were like, I keep hearing on the news that Canada needs Brazilians. And I was kind of like, well, I think it's kind of exaggerated on the news a little bit. And the agencies were kind of, using it in their favor. So I think that also kind of made the immigrants, think that it was even easier than it actually was too.
I totally agree. Yes. Like I can totally relate to that because we have also like I'm Ukrainian. So like in our Ukrainian community, we just have for the last, 30 years, this stereotype that Canada needs, which Canada does need, but like tradespeople. And then all the Ukrainians always think for some reason that if you come to Canada and work in trades, then it's like they give you PR like day one. They don't necessarily understand that there is a process to go through. Like it's still points. It's still, you still need that to get that invitation. We have a lot of trades clients that's like still are struggling to getting their invitations.
Right.
So it's not like necessarily that easy. And the reason why really is because by all these PR campaigns that Canadian government is like launching and attracting immigrants, they actually like reached the goal and they did attract enough immigrants. So there are a lot of immigrants now. And I heard not on the news, but I think some post on Instagram is that like totally like not just permanent residents, but like also temporary residents. Like so people on work permits, study permits coming to Canada, it's about 1.2 million per year. So 1.2 million per year, that's like whatever, like 300 or like whatever that math is like per minute. And then that person who was posting it, that person was saying that the average condo building is 500 units. And that condo building takes like 4 years to build usually. So that condo building will survive only 4 to 5 hours of immigration. So it takes 4 to 5 hours of immigration to fill the whole condo building in Toronto, Vancouver, or any other city, right? Like this is crazy. So the thing is that Canadian government, yes, like it's pretty dramatic. And Canadian government, like it's just, I think they're doing a really good job on like being proactive because first they had all these like free opportunities, which is like TR to PR, 75 draw, like running all these PR campaigns, right? Like we need Brazilians, we need Ukrainians, we need all of these people, right? But then they realized that, okay, like our systems cannot support the settlement of these
like
people.
healthcare.
healthcare, but these immigrants, they deserve, of course, everybody deserves good life. We deserve, like everybody, right? And
Right.
we need healthcare, we need shelters, we need, just social systems, schools, right?
Right.
Like as India, schools are getting over full, and kids like need to sit in these like large classes of like 40 people in Toronto. Like that's what's happening in Toronto.
Yeah.
And so now government is not being proactive, they're being reactive on like, okay, now this is happening. They're getting pushback from like Canadian society in a sense of like just people live in Canada, even immigrants themselves, because immigrants they wanted to come to Canada as like a really nice country. They're coming here and they realize they're not getting what they came here for. And now Immigration Ministry is essentially doing a closed door policy when they are slowly shutting things down because they need a break. They need to settle immigrants that are already in Canada. They need to figure out how to distribute those people like among the PR quotas and all of that. So now I really see that mindset shifts. Because when previously I felt like a lot of immigrants were saying that, like, well, I should be getting a PR like tomorrow, right? Now, like I literally had a conversation with one of my clients today in the morning and she was just like, I'll do whatever it takes. I'll, and it's just they start like shifting that mindset of like, okay, it is hard, right? And they start accepting the reality, which is hard, right? Because it's by the end of the day, it's not their fault. By the end of the day, we're all part of the whatever government create, like the system that government creates, right?
Right.
By the end of the day, it's like these ups and downs. It's the ministry who is doing them, right?
Right.
But yeah, like now I feel like the mindset is so different, like among our clients, because a lot of people need to reach much higher English level to get to that 500 points in express entry.
I think what I've noticed on the English side is that people are less complacent, because before with the TR to PR and like that 75-point draw, there was this false hope that it would happen again. Because like you said, it's not, and I don't think it's people's faults, right? Like when they see that happen once, the natural assumption is that, okay, it might happen again, right? Because like you and I were saying, like the government didn't say it wouldn't. Like we would assume, okay, if it happened once, it might happen again. They never said it wouldn't. So we have no, like at the time we had no idea what was going on. These draws happen unexpectedly. And like the regulated consultants, like you have no information either. Like these draws just literally pop up and unexpectedly. So a lot of our students, sometimes, they have a CLB 6, CLB 7. And at the time they were just kind of waiting, kind of expecting that another opportunity would pop up, and they were happy just sitting in the pool waiting for another opportunity like that to pop up. And what we're noticing now is that people realize that they can't just sit around and wait with a CLB 5, a CLB 6, a CLB 7, or even a CLB 8 anymore, that they have to boost their band score, because otherwise the time's just going to run out, their work permit's going to expire, and that's it. So they really have no choice anymore but to be courageous, be dedicated to their studies, hardworking, and to boost their band score, which is ultimately not just beneficial for, their PR program, their application, but for their English or their French in general.
Yeah, no, for sure. I really see it among my consultations that I do, that if previously when I was suggesting to retake English, which ultimately just like the first suggestion that I give, when you say like retake English previously, people were like, oh, I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to retake it. It's so hard. When now I do come across more and more applicants who have been taking English tests like 3-4 times, because every time they're trying to achieve more and more and more, and they are more dedicated, which is, like maybe it is a good thing about that whole story, is that even though like now PR is harder, of course, which is not great, but it does make you, really work for your goal. It really like puts a challenge on your kind of character. And like I see some positives in it. So yeah, I see a lot of people who really need to go from, as you said, CLB 7, 8 to CLB 9. So tell me, how long does it take for somebody to really jump a couple of levels in CLB?
Well, according to, Cambridge, it takes 200 hours of guided learning to go from one proficiency level to another. So it really does depend on your current proficiency and your ultimate goal. I recently had somebody say to me that they're at a current CLB 5 on their CELPIP and they need to get that CLB 9. So I'm currently talking with them, being really honest, that a CLB 5 is equivalent to the lower end of the B1 intermediate level of the scale. A CLB 9 is equivalent to C1 advanced, leaning a little bit more towards upper intermediate plus. So if we want to jump from intermediate, upper intermediate, C1 advanced, we're looking at least an increase or a jump of 2 entire proficiency levels. So if according to, international studies, it takes 200 hours of guided learning, you're looking at about 400 hours. Now, I'm just saying this to be honest and realistic. Usually what I recommend my students is increasing a proficiency level takes at least 3 months as a minimum of studies. Mm-hmm. So 2 proficiency levels, I would say at least 6 months as a minimum, because it does take time to learn a new language. Now, there are other factors that can come into play, like your age, your dedication to your studies, how interested you are in learning, who also helps you. And of course, when we are talking about these language proficiency tests, there's a lot more that comes into play than just your English proficiency level, because even a native English speaker like myself would have to prepare for the test. On your speaking and writing tests, only about half of your assessment has to do with your English in and of itself. The other half has to do with test strategies. And we teach those test strategies in our prep classes. So if you need help with that, definitely get in touch with us. But overall, I would recommend, if you need to jump from one proficiency level to another, to give yourself at least 3 months.
Yeah, that makes sense. And 3 months sounds reasonable. I don't know, in my opinion, like I just really see mostly at my job is people who need to go from CLB 8 to CLB 9, just because the benefit of going from CLB 8 to CLB 9 is crazy in terms of express entry. Like it adds you so many points, and it's really just like defines a lot of cases. It defines whether you're going to be invited, right? But people have such a hard time going from CLB 8 to CLB 9. It's crazy. Like,
I mean, I will say that that's kind of a blanket statement. I have had students who have come to us with a CLB 8 and they're just kind of stuck at like a 6.5 on the writing on the IELTS or a CLB 8 on the writing on the CELPIP. We have taken a look at their writing and we can quickly identify, you know what, you're just making a couple of mistakes here in a certain area, and we tweak it. And in 6 hours with us, we fix it and they pass with a CLB 9. So it really is a case-to-case basis, case-to-case situation. If we can take a look at your writing or the student's writing, if we can take a look at what's going on with one of our students' writing and see, or listen to their speaking responses and identify, is it an English problem or is it a test strategy problem? If it is a test strategy problem, it's a lot quicker to fix, because then we can just fix those test strategies. Those things are a lot easier and quicker to fix. If it's an actual English proficiency issue, like grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation, those things take longer to fix because it's a language thing. That takes time to learn. Test strategies, a lot quicker to fix. So it really does depend on what it is that you need to correct. And we can only really identify that, or our students rather, when we actually get to meet our students and hear them and do a proper analysis. So I say 3 months when, as a general statement, but when I actually get to meet our students and get to know them, it can be a month, it can be 2-3 weeks even. It just really depends on their situation.
Yeah, for sure. Sorry, off topic, but can you say, I've heard it already a couple of times. What does blanket statement means? Blanket statement?
It's kind of like if I'm making a statement that applies to everybody.
Oh, but it's blankets, like blanket that you sleep with?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like if it's like I'm covering everybody with a blanket. It's like, okay, if I want to just like cover everybody and say that this, what I'm saying applies to everybody, but it might not, right?
Yes, exactly.
Some people, it might, some people might be able to go from a CLP8 to CLP9 in 3 weeks. Some people might take 6 months. So it's really hard to just make a general statement, but
yeah,
as a rule of thumb.
But of course, you're more experienced, but among my clients, I can confidently say that there are like vast majority of people who have hard time going from CLB8 to CLB9. It is test strategies, 100%. Because I can hear their English. I can, like, most of them, they're very well educated. They have like masters in Canada or college diploma in Canada. They're clearly like very well educated, well spoken people. And I just know that it's like, please just learn how to take the test, like learn test strategy and you'll be fine.
But in that case, it's quick. In that case, it can be 3 to 4 weeks and you're done. Just come to us, 10 hours of lessons, even 6 hours sometimes. We just look at the writing and we see what's going on, test strategies, boom, 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 and get them out the door, take the test.
Yeah, a lot of times, like, especially as I said, among my clients, it really, I can see that being the case. And what I was going to say that, I want to say that a lot of times the reason for that, why this is the case, is because immigrants generally in Canada are so busy working. Like a lot of our clients, like a lot of clients work for like 50, 60 hours per week, and they just don't have time. But the thing is that you have to prioritize your immigration, right? Like you just have to.
Another reason why I do say, longer better than shorter is because people don't have all that time, like to do an intensive English, like study plan. Let's be realistic. Immigrants have to work 2 or 3 jobs. They've got kids, they've got other commitments. So it's from when somebody comes to me and they say, like, how long is it going to take? Well, it's like, well, how much time do you realistically have in your day-to-day life to study? It's unrealistic for me to expect you to drop everything or to expect a student to drop everything in their lives to study for their IELTS or CELPIP test all day long. So I have to be realistic and think about their commitment to it. And that's why I usually say, okay, well, can you commit 30 minutes a week? That's why it might take 3 months as well. So it's really what they commit.
Can I ask you a question? Like, do you have, when you do the, the lessons, do you provide like a homework? Like, do they need to?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So if somebody does like a 6-hour study plan for the writing, they're going to get like an entire collection of our sample responses. So they get an entire collection of writing task 1, writing task 2. They get an explanation of how to complete their writing responses, step-by-step guide. And then after each class, they get specific instructions like, okay, after class 1, you have to complete this, how to write an introduction paragraph, how to write the body paragraph, how to write a conclusion. And they have to actually produce those things for the next class. And then we provide them personalized feedback and corrections based on their homework. So they actually do get a lot of homework outside of class. So the classes are an hour, and then outside of class, they probably have to do about an hour of homework as well. Right? The more, the better.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Now that you were talking, I was just remembering the very first time that I took my IELTS. I needed to score, it was back in Ukraine. I needed to score overall 6.5, but not less than 6 in each section. And my English was just like not that good. Like obviously we all in Ukraine have English from grade 1 to grade 11 as a second language. So I did have a good level, but I really needed to bump it up. And now as you were explaining about homework, I had those like flashbacks, and I was like severely traumatized by amount of homework of essays that I needed to write. But I scored it like from the first try. I remember.
Good job. Good job. Well, I hope that helps. I mean, I know that having an IELTS examiner, CELPIP professional, giving that feedback and that personalized attention is really what makes a difference, because you finally get to know, okay, this is why I'm not getting the band scores I need, and these are my blind spots.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you explained me earlier that for a lot of people, it can be like just fixed punctuation, for example, right? And you just don't know that if you're doing it wrong, right? Like if you're doing punctuation wrong, like you wouldn't know. Like if there's nobody to tell you that you're doing this wrong, like how would you know, right?
There's a lot of things that we teach, because the examiners have like a picture, like a checklist that they go through, and they have a checklist for specific things, and we teach our candidates what that checklist is. And we go through the checklist with our students, and then we make sure that before we send them to the test, do you know how to write a response according to this checklist?
Yeah, you basically, other than, of course, teaching English and strategies and all of that and punctuation, but also you're teaching how examiners are going to assess your exam. Exactly. Right? Yeah. No, that makes sense for sure. Well, I think we discussed a lot today. Do you think we covered it all?
Yes, I think we covered it all. I mentioned to be careful of those scams online, just because of how, just last thing to mention is that because people are becoming so much more, I don't want to use the word desperate, but more concerned about getting their PR, to be very careful of any scams that you might see online. I do get contacted here and there on Instagram or via email, people selling fake IELTS or CELPIP certificates. Unfortunately, people can get, fooled by those. Those are fraudulent. Please do not waste your money on those. And our school does not have anything to do with that. And if anybody does contact you, be careful, because you might waste your money on that. And same thing goes with any other fake documents for your PR, like for your express entry. Don't for
LMIA. Like I just recently, before we went recording here, I just went on Instagram and somebody was asking question, like, how do you apply for PR? I don't have money for LMIA. Well, like ultimately buying LMIA is already a wrong choice. So whether you have it or not, that's just not a good idea. And I've been doing this job for about more than 7 years now. And in 7 years of my practice, I haven't seen even one successful case that somebody bought LMIA from some, black market consultant and was successful with it. Like all I hear is that I bought LMIA and then, employer didn't exist. LMIA was fake or got misrepresentation from IRCC, right? So never a good idea.
Yeah, exactly. So never a good idea. Unfortunately, there are some scammers that use our logo to sell them, but we are not affiliated with that whatsoever. So just want to make sure that's very clear. Be careful, because in the world of immigration, you can see a lot of scams out there. So we want to make sure that none of you have anybody take advantage of you because you're in a vulnerable position. And we know that immigrants can be in a vulnerable position because you feel that need and that desperation to stay here, and you deserve to stay here. But of course, you want to do it the right way.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Maria, thank you so much. What are we talking about in the next podcast?
So the next podcast, we're going to talk about AI machines in immigration. Dun, 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 dun. Some big changes in the world of immigration and language proficiency tests. And what are you going to be talking about, Olena?
We're going to be talking about artificial intelligence for immigration processing. You will be surprised to learn that most of immigration cases are processed within minutes and not hours, because a lot of cases are processed with the help of artificial intelligence. I actually just told Corey, my husband, who is also a licensed immigration consultant, that PTE test is also assessed by artificial intelligence. And he was like, what?
Yeah, no more human examiners. We're going to be talking about that next week, and I'm going to go down the rabbit hole about the differences of we're not in super detail, because a little bit, it's very, very detailed, everything I've studied about it, but the scoring differences between the PTE, IELTS, and CELPIP, we can talk about that next week.
Sounds good. Well, thank you so much, and we will see you next week.
See you next week, everybody.